Welcome back to Constructing the Carolinas, the podcast where we explore the people, partnerships, and projects shaping communities across our great state. Brought to you by Barnhill, building North Carolina since 1949. I'm your host, Valerie Bono, Director of Business Development. Today, we're talking about momentum, specifically the kind that's building across eastern North Carolina. I'm joined by three leaders who are helping write the next chapter in the Twin Counties and beyond. Benton Moss, CEO of Simmons and Harris, and host of the Twin County Spotlight podcast. Susan Phelps, Economic Development Manager for Nash County, and Bob Pike, President and CEO of Carolina's Gateway Partnership. From historic downtown revitalizations and workforce housing to megasite wins and modern infrastructure, this group is all in on shaping a region that's more connected, competitive, and community-driven than ever before. We'll talk about the investments that are attracting families and businesses alike, what it takes to keep growth inclusive, and how collaboration between developers, municipalities, and residents is turning potential into progress. Well, thank you all for being here today. I'm really excited about this particular episode. We're all representing Eastern North Carolina and doing a wonderful job at that. So I'm going to start off, Benton. I guess we'll go around and do a quick introduction of each other. So I'll start with you, Benton, and I'll do a little preview, if you will. You know, you wear two hats as the CEO of Simmons and Harris and also as the host of the Twin Cities Spotlight, which is a podcast. So I'd love for you to talk about that. But in your career, you've ridden Nash and Edgecombe counties' ups and downs, especially in commercial real estate. So can you share what first drew you into commercial real estate in particular, and then also maybe why you launched the podcast?
Sure. So I'll start with the second one. But again, my name is Benton Moss. I'm the CEO of Simmons and Harris, and started a digital media company called Twin County Media. We run a podcast called the Twin County Spotlight, and we really we felt that there was a market opportunity. We wanted to highlight all the positive things going on in the Twin Counties, Nash and Edgecombe. And so, I've seen other very successful real estate entrepreneurs dabble in media before. Not to say that we would, do anything of that size, but I just felt like there was an opportunity to really highlight on the development side, on the business side, politically, just population growth, jobs coming. There's a whole lot that wasn't getting highlighted on social media in more of a digital format. We felt like there was a market opportunity to address. As far as getting into commercial real estate, I've always loved development. I think it's kind of my passion. Day to day, I run a property management, maintenance, construction business, and we've got a commercial brokerage arm as well. Development is, it's hard, right? You guys are in the construction business. It's slow. There's no getting around it. But once you see a final product that's tangible and it's going to be there, it really is a force for good to change communities. And so that was something that's always appealed to me. I was fortunate enough to work at Kane Realty for a couple years in Raleigh before moving back east to Rocky Mount, where I'm from originally. And so, today we're trying to bring a little bit of what I've learned in that industry and bring it back home to East North Carolina. So I'm fortunate enough to work with people like Bob and Susan and many others in the area. And we've got a lot going on that I'm sure we're going to get into today.
Yeah, no, I love that. And that's a great segue for Bob. So, you're the head of the Carolinas Gateway Partnership, and you've been steering the region's recruitment and growth efforts. So what experiences have led you here, and what does a typical day in the life look like for you?
Wow. Well, it's a real privilege to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. But the Carolinas Gateway Partnership, it's not the greatest name to tell what we do, but we are a partnership, private-public, between the county of Edgecombe, Rocky Mount, as well as the city of Tarboro, or town of Tarboro. We do all the economic development work for those three organizations. With that, we have the privilege of being able to market one of the best assets in North Carolina, the Kingsborough megasite. And we're really excited about all the opportunities that are showing up there recently. But my background is not a traditional economic developer. I come out of the commercial ag industry, but it's putting deals together. And that's what we do. We try to bring people together. We're connectors. From people from all over the world to right in our own neighborhood. Working with existing industries, something we're focusing on as well. So we do everything from product development work, site development, trying to present opportunities for industry that may want to come to our region. We promote the region. Just recently, we've gotten very active in workforce housing as workforce development, as well as helping out existing industry. So we have a small staff, but we have a lot going on and a lot of good times, a lot of exciting things going on in Eastern North Carolina.
Yeah. Eastern North Carolina seems to be where it's at these days. And I really appreciate, two things I heard from both of you is that, you have a non-traditional media branch, right, promoting commercial real estate, and then you come to economic development from a non-traditional avenue on the private sector, right, with eggs. So
very much.
It's really fascinating, and I think that's pretty neat. So, well, Susan, we're talking about economic development, and we just had the fun opportunity. We ran into each other at the NCEDA annual conference. I'd love to hear more about your role in Nash County with your boots on the ground, what you're doing. And I'd love to hear more about how you would define your role, and then what first inspired you to focus on the rural growth in Nash County.
So I'm the Economic Development Manager for Nash County. My role has morphed quite a bit in the last 5 to 6 years. So when I originally started with the county in 2017, the focus was to support our rural small towns, so people that didn't have the capacity to necessarily go out and recruit even small business, much less industry. So it started as that and has morphed into doing everything from recruiting large industrial projects to the county to small Main Street businesses in some of our smaller communities. It's fun. I will say every day is different. When you ask Bob what's a day in the life, I don't think there's a day that's ever the same. We get a variety of projects to our region that always keep it interesting. And I think the most fun part for us in our region is that we are on the cusp of so much growth coming out of the triangle, and we have so much opportunity. That's building momentum for us. And so just seeing that morph over the last 5 years is exciting.
Yeah, no, it really is. And that's a great segue into what I want to talk about next, which is just the overall momentum in Eastern North Carolina. So I feel like Eastern North Carolina, it's become a buzz term, right? Oh, Eastern North Carolina. We've heard about downtown revitalizations, new industrial builds. You mentioned the megasite. So what's the headline that each of you are following right now? And it could be different. I'm curious which each one of you are following.
For us, we're doing a lot with site development. We've put a really big focus on that in the last several years, spending a lot of local dollars and getting our sites ready, but also leveraging some grant funds and opportunities, because we often hear in economic development, no product, no project. And so getting our sites ready and following what those trending industries are has been key for us. And it seems to change quite a bit lately, but focusing a lot on that life science and advanced manufacturing for us.
The 2 P's, power and people. One of the, we fortunate to have inventory, whether it's the megasite, the Rocky Mountain Industrial Village is smaller. We call it single, doubles, and triples, and Tarboro, the Tarboro Commerce Center. But we've got to have people, and we got to have power. We're fortunate in Eastern North Carolina to be supplied by 2 main inputs of power from Duke Energy from the west, and Dominion Industry from Dominion Energy from the north and east. So that allows us to have an adequate supply today, but looking out 10 years, where are we going to be? What do we need? Every place in the world needs power, right? Especially nowadays. And it's something that we're really excited about, the fact that we do have some major transmission lines, both in power as well as natural gas, running right through our county. So 10-year plan on power. And along with that inventory brings questions from clients, people. Population obviously is not there. We tout the fact that we're an hour away from the triangle, but still we're trying to work together to bring a 10-year workforce housing program, and that's going to involve the region. When you look at the fact that between what Susan's done in Nash County, the folks in Wilson and Pike County, and what we've done, 3,800 jobs right now are teed up for people to come and work in our region over the next 2 to 5 years. Where are they going to live? And fortunately, with Edgecombe County, it's a clean slate. So we're working real hard on developing a 10-year plan for where we're going to bring people to live, work, and play. So those two things.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah. That's a perfect segue. Economic development and sort of population growth, demographics, it's sort of a three-legged stool, right? Like you have the municipalities, you have your people, the folks that work in the economic development space, then you've got your private developers, right? And so that's sort of the space that I work on and in, if you will. The media side of things really comes into play there too, because we are, I'm actively trying to help revitalize some buildings in downtown Rocky Mount. I believe in downtown Rocky Mount. It's a beautiful downtown. It just needs some capital, a vision, and it needs people. But you have the municipalities, you have the economic developers, then you have the private developers. The media side of things, we can highlight what is actually going on in the area from that standpoint, and the jobs that are coming, and the housing that is coming. I want to focus on too what Bob said: live, work, and play. And Susan and Bob, they work really hard on where people are going to work, starting to work on where they're going to live, but we often don't talk enough about where they're going to play. Like what other amenities are there in a town or in a city or in a region. And so I think a lot of that happens organically, but also it's about a narrative. Again, getting back to the kind of the media side of things, like we're all trying to speak the same narrative that there is a lot of opportunity in these towns in the region. We don't have anybody here from Wilson today, but you look at what happened in downtown Wilson with the stadium, Centra at Pine Nash, some of the other smaller renovations and revitalization going on there. Rocky Mount's putting its money where its mouth is in downtown. We've got some green shoots, coming up there as well. So I think the play part of it is also very important as part of that three-legged stool. So that's, we focus a lot on that as well in the media space.
Yeah.
I want to add to that, the other play is the Sunset Commons project. It's amazing when you look at what's going on. It's located in Nash County, so I won't take your thunder, but it is part of Rocky Mount. Yeah. With the megasite on one side of Rocky Mount and the Sunset Commons. What is the Sunset Commons? It's 330 plus acres of prime real estate with 2 exits off of 95 with 90 million cars a year. It's going to be a destination stop, but it also is an opportunity to bring some really unique living space in a part of our world that, along with the revitalization of downtown Rocky Mount and all the great things that are going out in the smaller communities, all of it's come together. So if you want to live somewhere, you have the choice of living in a metropolitan area, a new up-and-coming Fenton Place kind of an operation right on the major transportation corridors, or you can be in a nice little town like Tarboro, Nashville. Kind of a blend of all things, right?
And the good thing is it's all connected with future I-87. It's very easy to get up here. It took me 50 minutes to get up here. Very easy drive. Got to make a few phone calls, which I don't get to do anymore because I don't have a commute in Rocky Mount. So we've got a lot going on.
And I think it's really smart, right? We were just joking before we started recording about affordable housing too, and like how Wake County, it's very expensive, but you drive 50 minutes to your point outside of it, it's more affordable today. But as Eastern North Carolina continues to grow, the question becomes, will it still be affordable? But I think you're being really proactive with this workforce housing component. I mean, that's such an incredible component that's missing in so many communities in North Carolina. I think it's a really proactive approach to maintain affordable housing for all, especially the workforce.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah. Well, Benton, so On the Twin City Spotlight, you've covered so many different things. One of them I saw was Milltown makeovers to Main Street turnarounds. What's the single most inspiring story you'd say you've told in Nash or Edgecombe County?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. Because I've lost count of how many podcasts we've done. So we've done podcasts. We've done podcasts with Bob and with Susan, with folks in the public sector. We've done them with mayors. We've done them with lots of nonprofits as well. One that does stick out in my mind, it was fairly recent. Trevor and Tony Foote, I'll give them a shout out. They're also one of our community partners, so we're grateful for our community partners who support our mission. But they actually partnered with the Barnhill Foundation to help a veteran in need, and actually built a custom house that suited her needs based on her disabilities. So that was a really cool, just seeing how the community came together with the foundation, with a local builder, a nonprofit. I'm going to get their name wrong, but Helping a Hero, I think is the name of it. So that's one of many stories that we've gotten to tell. But that's one that sticks out.
Yeah, no, that's an incredible partnership, right? And it's something so wonderful to see that you could pay it forward and help a veteran, right? Have that home. Yep. That's awesome. Bob, so you've mentioned some of the industries that you've been a part of, and you've recruited aerospace, logistic giants. Is there a recent win that you think will reshape Eastern North Carolina, something that we'll be looking back on maybe 50 years from now and say, oh, wow, like the Gateway Partnership was a part of that?
Yeah, obviously the Natron Energy that was announced last year was voted the number one megasite project of the year for the whole country. And so with that said, that has brought a lot of attention. It's become the lightning rod. I tell people our area, call it the industrial square between Greenville, Wilson, Rocky Mount, and Tarboro, with the megasite is much like the Research Triangle Park was in the 60s. Two poor agriculture counties, although Nash County has done extremely well because of the proximity to Wake County. But with that said, Natron is going to be the IBM of the area that's going to start the momentum and trying to get, the recognition that has, been invested in over the last 2 decades by the local governments that just put all this money into that site. We're getting interest from really all over the world because of Natron Energy and what it's bringing. The other exciting one is the North Carolina Railroad has been very active in supporting the intermodal. We've not talked about that yet. But we have one of the premier inland ports in just north of Rocky Mount. And we're connecting up, of course, with the ports in North Carolina, Morehead, and Wilmington, but now recently Savannah. And with that, the North Carolina Railroad came in and helped us to buy 143 acres. And we're working with a developer right now that is going to put over 1 million square feet of logistics and distribution facilities that will be connected to that inland port directly. And we'll lay the foundation what could be as much as 6 to 8 million square feet of buildings. And that just occurred last week. So really, really excited about what that's going to bring. But those two main areas, and obviously those are tremendous assets that the state, the county, and the municipalities has invested in. It just didn't happen. It's a legacy that we're able to reap the benefits from right now. So
absolutely. I'm just dying to know. I mean, we hear about it in the news and it seems so easy, but obviously a lot goes in behind the scenes. Can you offer a glimpse as to how long something like 2 of those take?
Well, I think I told you earlier, I came out of the egg business, and our saying is sell it or smell it. Well, economic development, that's not the case. Like you were illustrating, it takes a while. The Kingsborough megasite has been almost 20 years in development. Wow. And it starts out usually with a landowner that has interest in the county and wants to add back, and that was the case there. A family just said, "Hey, we got this farm. We need some help. What do we do?" Our predecessors, John Gesseman, Norris Tolson, Hoppy Jordan, saw that vision as well as the county leaders that just started investing through grants. Organizations like Golden Leaf, North Carolina Railroad have participated, but a lot of taxpayer money and efforts gone into in time and treasure to build these facilities with a hope of jobs and making it lives better for your residents. But then you get into all the engineering work and layout and the site development and, multiple, we in this day and time, we're instant. Everybody wants it, right? So you try to have sites prepared to meet the needs of anybody who wants to come in here and get building as quick as they can and get their product to market. And I won't steal your thunder, but Nash County's done a great job with shell building. So you've got a building ready to go. You just jump in and go. But it does take a long time, a lot of efforts, and a lot of resources.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that glimpse into, the years, decades that can take
Very
place
much.
behind the scenes. So on the ground in Nash County, Susan, there's some big picture initiatives, and they really translate into real world impact. So what have you seen change the most in Nash? And then also, I guess, through the past year and then in the short term?
Yeah. So kind of talking about what Bob said, it takes forethought to plan these things out and to make these public investments in some of these industrial parks and sites. And we've done the same thing in Nash County. And just within the last 5 years, we've been really aggressive in our shell building program. And so we've got a 330-acre industrial park in Middlesex. So you're 25 minutes from downtown Raleigh. People don't even realize that. You're right off of 264 heading towards Greenville, just outside of Zebulon. And so when I started, we had some of that land. We made the investment in adding to it and doing additional work. At the same time, we're doing infrastructure improvements, road, water, sewer, building shell buildings, all to recruit jobs that are going to be impactful in that community and in that county. And so I always joke when Bob does the, 1, 2s, and 3s. So we like projects that fit a community. So maybe a massive project's not going to be absorbed very well yet because the workforce isn't there. But in our first shell building in Middlesex, we had a startup company out of NC State that was here in Raleigh. They still have office and presence here, but they were growing their food processing industry and needed manufacturing. Shell building was perfect. It was a blank slate, no floor, ready for them to go in. That company has now become extremely invested in our community, created jobs that are, adding to that workforce in Middlesex. And so we've just taken that program and replicated it. So we finish one shell building, we'll put it into another. And so we are starting our third in Middlesex. We've been pretty successful where we've had contracts on these before they're ever even completed. And I think that our proximity to the Triangle helps. We've got a lot of growth in the RTP region that wants to stay close to that region. And so, making that investment, getting that infrastructure there, having those good partners like Golden Leaf, NC Commerce, NC Railroad are key because our small counties and rural communities can't do it alone. We can't just rely on our local tax base for that. And so I think being strategic and planning it out has been really key for us. And then I just want to put a plug in for our existing industry. We have been extremely successful in Nash with existing industry expansions, and I think that says a lot about the climate of doing business in Nash County and in the region. And so we're excited to see them continue to grow and prosper and want to help prop them up any way that we can.
No, I love that. And I love that you recognized existing industry.
Yeah,
it's so important.
We couldn't do anything without
right.
them. They're our biggest cheerleader when it comes to recruitment of new industry. But they're the ones already employing our community, and we've got to support them, especially with workforce challenges that we're seeing in the market just across the U.S. right now.
I'll add to that. One of the things that just ran into a client just last week that's questioned, why would we come here, again, the workforce, why would we invest millions and millions of dollars? And I cite what you all did with Cummins, $700 million, and it's kind of flown under the radar, the investment into that facility. And, Steve Pinkins and his group, why? Well, they got a great workforce, and it's trainable. And, there's people there have been 40 years. They were working in a tobacco field. Now they're running one of the premier engine plants in the world right there in Rocky Mount, Nash County. So we cite those examples. So working with existing industry, small as well as large, is the message we tell to our clients.
And I want to just add to the Cummins comment, they employ people from like 30 counties. And so people want to know, where are we going to get the workforce from? It's not all going to come from Wilson or Edgecombe or Nash County. There's a drive shed, around that area that we can employ plenty of people. But as sort of a local resident, developer, somebody that's really trying to be for the area, we want more of those people to be employed and live and work in the Twin Counties. So,
yeah, no, and that's a good segue to the next. So it ties in a little bit right on the commercial real estate side of things, and then just overall trends. And so I've got a question for you, Benton, more on the commercial real estate side. So Rocky Mount and its neighbors, they've seen a flurry with activity, with downtown storefronts getting rehabbed, spec warehouses are popping up, and we were just talking about the shell building program that we've seen over Eastern North Carolina. So with the move shaping commercial real estate today, there's a lot of nuances, a lot of uncertainty, but what are some of the surprises you're seeing right now? Anything you want to add there?
Yeah, I would say, as far as, Eastern North Carolina, Wilson, Rocky Mount, Nashville, Tarboro, surrounding areas, the land, the buildings, it's, I would say, almost always going to be relatively cheaper than the Triangle, right? So if you go back and look, kind of throughout the great financial crisis and on, those areas didn't have nearly the boom and bust as like the Triangle did. And so they've always been fairly steady markets. They did, they were certainly affected. I mean, Rocky Mount virtually had no building permits from like 2008 to like 2020, but they didn't have that many building permits to begin with, right? So whereas the Triangle, really took it on the chin. It's more of a boom and bust area. So I think, from just an investment, a development standpoint, your basis is going to be lower. Your risk is probably lower from just a cost standpoint. I'd say the struggle that we run into on the commercial side is, if you build it, will they come, right? Because developers want to see, trend lines going in a certain direction. So do bankers, so do anybody who wants to finance it. They want to see the trends going in the right direction. And, if you look at the census data, it was during COVID. I really don't honestly, I think it was fake news, but that's a different discussion. I just think that it was wrong. I don't think they got a good coverage sample of some of the counties and areas, particularly in rural areas. And so the last 5 years, I mean, you guys can attest to it. The roads are busier. There are a lot more permits being pulled. I was just looking at actually a letter I got today in Rocky Mount South, sort of southwest Rocky Mount, of a 250, 300 house subdivision that's being filed. So that was not happening 5 years ago, and it's happening today. So from a cost standpoint, you have a lower cost basis, a lower entry point. This again ties back to the media. We're really trying to push that narrative, like there is a lot going on. And so that narrative has to start first, and people believe that narrative. So then things will actually start to appear. So then we set those trend lines of, all right, rents are starting to rise, prices are starting to rise. The trends are going in the right direction. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. And you mentioned COVID. So North Carolina, we've seen all the statistics. North Carolina as a whole has outpaced COVID recovery. I haven't seen any of the numbers, but I would argue that even with the uncertainty in commercial real estate, I would think that Eastern North Carolina is outpacing much of the rest of the state. And I don't know if there's any data to back that up, but I would just speculate that.
Well, I will say during during the pandemic, Nash County was actually one of the highest rent growth areas in the country. And I don't know that was necessarily due to people, moving out of the city and going to Nash County as much as it was just the rents. Again, cost of living was so much lower relative to people's incomes, what people were able to pay. That's moderated some since the pandemic's, gone away. But I still think that the cost to get in, whether it's a old building in downtown that you want to renovate, a piece of land that you want to develop, flex building on. The one caveat that I would say is office. I mean, hate to say it, office is just tough, right? I mean, people work more remotely. You need a smaller footprint. So I'd say office is probably it's moderate to slow, if you will. Residential, industrial. I mean, we need it. We need it badly. Bob's his group's working on a report right now that's showing the housing pipeline, the job pipeline, and how those, the chicken and the egg, how they line up, right? And what we need. And so we just need some of those to start hitting so people see those trends going in the right direction.
Very much.
Yeah, I think the trends are going in the right direction. Bob and Susan, I'll have a question around commercial real estate for you. So from when you're pitching site selectors, what are some of the commercial real estate metrics that you all are tracking? Is it land availability, the real estate costs, proximity to workforce? I mean, it's kind of all of the above, but I'm just curious, what's the biggest competitive advantage that you're able to use in your arsenal of tools?
I would say land availability is first. So they ask us if we have sites, how large are our sites? And we're getting anything from, a couple of acres to 500 acres where they're going to need megasite, they're going to need big space because projects are getting larger. But then the next one is the people. I mean, we keep going back to people. Benton's fake news comment is 100% spot on. I tell everybody all the time that our census data is just, there's no way it's correct. We saw residential building permits coming in through Nash County, tripling. And we hadn't seen that before and how we manage that. So I think, our sites and land availability and our workforce are the major topics, and then utilities. I would be remiss if I didn't say utilities because it can make or break. And that is a challenge for Eastern North Carolina, whether it's, having availability of power or having availability of water and sewer capacity that can handle these projects on top of residential growth. And how do we manage that? So those are our big drivers. But we also say that we're full of opportunity. So don't let those things be a hurdle. Let us work with you. And that's where our community partners have been vital to us.
No, I agree. Sites, you got to have the land, right? You got to have a product. You can't sell anything if you don't have inventory. But then second is we've talked extensively about workforce. Where are the people going to live? And where are you going to train them? That's the other thing that's really exciting. The fact that, North Carolina has the best community college organization. It's the deal for real. And we have a ring of 8 within our region, we call it Ramp East, that we have coordinated, and the community colleges do a great job for workforce training, soft training, if you will, but also technical specialization of, if a company wants to come in and they've got a piece of equipment they want to train somebody on, they can go to Nash Community or Edgecombe or really basically any of our community colleges and get customized workforce training. So that's a big attribute as well. As well as I was saying earlier about power, is so critical. The other thing we have as a region, our water quality is some of the best on the East Coast, if not within the country. And because of the textile industry that was in the region, we have a surplus of water treatment as well as sewer. I know that's really glamorous to talk about, But, water is such a vital part. We've got a beverage company right now looking at us, and, we put the clients across from the table, and they're our friends in Rocky Mount. They're the greatest salesmen in terms of selling water. had a pitcher of water right there on the table and poured a cup and say, hey, what do you think? Well, that tastes good. There is a difference in water, right?
From the Tarp River?
Well, all the above, yeah. But we have a lot of water, and that goes for projects like beverage, of course, but cooling. What about power generation? What about data centers? All these projects. And so when you look at the attributes we have as a region, like I say, I've not been in this economic professional in a role, but when you look at assets for a community, we've got it all. This is where you want to be. The other thing I want to mention is the culture change. We've lived in Nash County in the region for almost 40 years now, long before you guys were even born, right? We were always had the stigma of cultural difference. We have a railroad running right through the city. That's going away. We still have issues that need to be addressed, but it's the new generation that's coming in that says, hey, we don't have time for that anymore. And because of the opportunities, the hope that's coming into the region, we're looking beyond those differences and looking at more of what we have in common and what we want for our children, in my case, grandchildren, to be better and do it in a way that is going to be productive for all levels of individuals.
One other comment that I would add to both of theirs is that, and I think a council member recently said this in an article, but Rocky Mount, particularly, but I would say the region as well, has access. 264, 64, future I-87, and 95. You can get anywhere you need to get within 2 to 4 hours. You can get down to the coast in 2 hours. You can go up to D.C. in probably just a little bit less than 4. You get down to Atlanta fairly quickly. You can get over to the Triangle in 45 to 50, get to Charlotte in 2.5, 3. So the access is, in my opinion, is some of the best. And that's for the live work play side, but also the industrial, the logistics, more of the economic development side too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a central place that you can get anywhere you need to be in a matter of hours. Bob, you were talking about workforce, and that, North Carolinians, we like to debate a lot of things, right? Are you Duke Carolina fan or an NC State or Carolina fan, or do you like Eastern barbecue or Western barbecue? But I think the one common thread is we are all united on workforce, right? We've had Andrew Gardner on the podcast with the community college system, and he's talked about all the initiatives that they've done. I'm curious, and it might be through, each of you may have a different story to share, but what are some of the partnerships that the Gateway Partnership has with the community college system as it relates to workforce development?
Well, when clients come into town, we bring the community college presidents, Dr. McLeod. They have a seat at the table from the get-go because they have such a great story about the community college system in general and how they collaborate, like I was talking about, between the county or the different colleges in our region. But the flexibility and the support we get from EDP&C and Department of Commerce to help fund special initiatives. Along the fact that we just got good people, good, smart people in those colleges that have a real passion to teach our young people, but also folks with gray hair like myself that need to be retooled in this new economy. Had the opportunity to go to a lunch and learn even about ChatGPT. I think that's what you call him. It's crazy, right? It's just a whole new technology that is moving so quick that the community colleges are going to have a key part. They do have a key part of that technology transition for all industries. I come out of the egg industry, and it's got so sophisticated, all the way up to a company like Natron Energy, some of the premier technology and energy. So it's something that the community college is the backbone for education, whether you're in high school or, transitioning through the, what's the college name?
Wesleyan.
No, well, that too. But not the senior college.
The early college?
Early.
Early college, yeah.
Their early college is a great program to go in with Wesleyan. And you might want to talk about that program that you can go to Wesleyan and get a 4-year degree now for $20,000. And it's connected with a community college. And I mean, where can you go to a private institution, the quality of Wesleyan, and be able to get an education like that for $20,000? Yeah. That's for all 4 years.
Yeah.
So.
That's incredible. That's the almost 1 year of in-state college tuition for some of the public universities.
Right.
And it's the collaboration, and we're growing. We are a large community. But we've got the connectivityness, if you will. That's not a word, but and that's what we do. Right. We connect, and Wesleyan connecting with Nash Community College, and we do that all the time, and that's what's really exciting.
Yeah, we've had the opportunity to build for the Wilson Early College.
Yes,
and that's been a great project too, with workforce and training our future talent. Well, so if we look at public-private collaborations and overall community impact, Bob, we'll stick with you for a little bit. So you brokered some of the region's largest public-private ventures. Can you give us a little bit of a behind-the-scenes look at some of the deals where public and private deals nearly clashed, and then explain how you struck the balance to deliver a community benefit?
Yeah. Well, we're dealing with it, going back to my comments on power. It's like out in Colorado, you have rivers that everybody wants to pull water out of, right? The same way with power. I want to compete with Susan on if she's pulling power into Nash County or whatever resources that may come into play. And, our government leaders have a concern. Hey, we make this investment in jobs. Do we want, a data center, for example, that may bring a tremendous amount? We see what we have in Richmond County with a $10 billion investment in a county like that. They're not going to know what to do with all the property tax money that's going to be coming in. But you got to balance that with the people side of it and the amount of resources that those projects will uptake. And that's the case in all of our community assets. You may have an industry come in and just hog it up. So we have to balance and project and think ahead. And there's sometimes you got to say no. There's sometimes we got to kind of talk through and say, let's don't look at just today, because a lot of what we do is supported by folks that are in public office as well. Sometimes their cycle is 2 years, 4 years, and they got to make decisions for today. But fortunately, I think in our region, much like was done 20 years ago, we still have a very good political atmosphere that they want to take care of the long term as well. So mainly in around infrastructure, what do we do? We get too many jobs, we'll have people trying to get into Walmart. Traffic's terrible, right? So those are the main conflicts I see.
Well, Susan, so Nash County, it hasn't always grabbed the national headlines, right? But there's certainly big news coming out of Nash County. So can you talk about some of the recent big announcements, and then maybe what have been some of the unconventional ways that the local government and business community have collaborated to transform the small economic impact?
So Bob's comment about sometimes you have to learn to say no. We're in a unique position where maybe at one time we would want any project that was looking at us. It's not that way anymore. We can be selective in the types of projects that we're recruiting and have the ability to say, no, that's not a good fit for our community. And I think that has been an interesting balancing act for us. We do want to find those projects that are going to create a really good wage for our community, that are going to bring those good jobs, not tax our systems too much. For us, I go back to our existing industry. We've had some new announcements. Sonova Tech and First Wave Innovations in Middlesex, this is the food processing company, great group to work with. And then we've also had GXP Storage, which came to us because they wanted to be near RTP, so they store life science materials, any kind of products that may have been recalled, things like that. So cold storage, and they are building out a campus of 3 buildings. Those have been, small but mighty projects for us in that park. But then we've got to tout some of our existing industry expansions. Cummins making such a major investment in a facility that they've been in for 40 years. They continue to be an amazing partner with the community college system, our public school system, to really be that cheerleader for Nash County and the region to say, we've made it work here, we're reinvesting, and we're investing in our people. And that's what we try to share with companies that are looking. Another one that has been really fun to watch in the last 3 years, we had a Canadian pet treat manufacturer, Crump Naturals. So fun story, family business, started in their garage, selling at a farmer's market. They were buying their sweet potatoes from Nash County, shipping them up to Canada. And so smack in the middle of COVID, we had a specialty food building become available. They came down, looked at it, moved in, and they are already expanding and adding 85,000 square feet on to their existing building, 160 jobs. Been a wonderful group to work with. So it's just really cool to see how the supply chain connects and how that lands certain projects. I think when we look to the future and what we're trying to recruit, we're going to continue to be a little more strategic and selective and thinking about what types of positions we want to recruit to the area and how we build out that infrastructure to support it. So yeah, those are just, our existing industry is just something to really tout, and their resiliency in being in a community that's been through ups and downs and being on the upward end now of a lot of growth, it's helping us recruit that new industry.
I'll just make an anecdotal comment on Susan's just overview. When Cummins, when they were underway with their $500 million, upfit, essentially, I think they're retooling their assembly lines. We housed several of their consultants that were doing a lot of mechanical upgrades for, close to a year. And so that's just one little anecdotal way, those people are spending money in our restaurants. They're shopping local. I know that I talked to several of them. They like to go down to the beach, right? Because we're close to the beach. But they stayed in our community. They spent in our community. They had fun in our community. And eventually those, temporary workers will give way to permanent jobs, right? So just a small little way that, all this impacts other small businesses.
I think the other thing about existing industry is the diversity. Mm-hmm. We have food companies, Sara Lee, one of the largest bakeries in the country. Cheesecake Factory, I call it Cheesecake Factory, Cheesecake Factory. And Poppy's. So we have the food industry. We have facilities that make engines. We have, of course, the tobacco industry is still alive and well. And we have the egg industry. We have high-tech industry. The Honeywell is there in Rocky Mount. So you just have the diversification, which helps you weather the storms, because when one is maybe down, the other one's up. So I think paying attention to our existing industry and the fact that when we have clients come in, they see the vitality of what's going on in our existing industry portfolio.
And the same way that we do have a diverse array of industries, there's a common thread, and our area is an area of makers. We make things. We produce things. We got a lot of great service businesses as well, Barnhill being one of them. I guess you could say you guys make things as well. But we're an area of makers. We create things, and that's something to be proud of. So that's what I think Bob and Susan and a lot of the other folks in the area are building off of.
And the legacy, the fact that Hardee's, was started. Many of the banks were started in Rocky Mount, in Nash County, and Wilson. Just a lot of pioneers in industry, and that spirit of producing rather than being consumers, they're producers. It goes a long way.
No, it does go a long way. And, Benton, I'm curious from your perspective on the commercial real estate side. So we're talking public-private partnerships. They could really make or break any project. So can you tell us about a standout deal in Eastern North Carolina that either you've been involved with or that you've seen unfold? Maybe it was the sodium ion battery plant in Edgecombe or one of the Shell buildings that Susan mentioned. But can you tell us an example maybe where the strategic alliance didn't just de-risk development, but maybe it sparked a wider community revitalization?
Sure. I'm going to mention a few if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Here's the reason why. As I'm just sitting here thinking about it, Spring Hope, Kyle Pritchard, he's done a good job with a few public-private partnerships trying to revitalize downtown Spring Hope. Their Main Street. I'm not as familiar with some of those projects, but I've read a lot about them in Twin County media. And Rocky Mount has certainly put its money where its mouth is. They have awarded a group that I'm working with about $1.5 million in grant money. It's gap funding. A lot of these old buildings require a ton of money to repurpose, and so those downtown major investment program is what it's called, DMIIP. So a long way of saying, up to a certain amount, they'll help you fund it, with gap funding, but you got to bring the rest of the capital. So there've been other entrepreneurs and developers in downtown that have also taken advantage of that program. Nashville's another example with the Nashville Junction. So, and I don't know all the backstory of it, but essentially they had an old building supply building. They didn't want it to go, to waste. They wanted somebody to keep the historic character, but repurpose it. And so a gentleman named Michael Hurt, he's a developer, did a great job. We manage it, have leased it almost out. I think we have 3 spaces left out of the 13, but it's a beautiful historic renovation. It's a historic tax credit deal, but that was a public-private partnership. They have a farmer's market out there. They have a little amphitheater that they built. It's a really great, long time coming,
yes.
Public-private partnership between Nashville and the developer. And then Tarborough's done a great job as well with their Main Street. It is so charming to just, see all the storefronts that are there, Heichel Properties. Charles Ainsley is another guy who's done some residential above retail. Those have been, a little smaller in nature, but just because the buildings are a little bit smaller, Main Street's a little smaller, but it's charming. I mean, it's a beautiful little town. If you're going to the beach, you should stop by, have lunch at on the square, just walk Main Street, go to the brewery that's there. It's beautiful. And I think just, obviously to cap it off, you've seen what's happened in Wilson. First with Wilson and the Centro deal, Wilson helped them build that parking deck. They invested some money, in exchange, I think, for some workforce housing in Centro as well. And then, a few years later, lightning struck, they threaded the needle, and for a lot of different reasons, the Mudcats were looking for a new home. Just so happened that, they had a space that fit the dimensions, and there you go, right? So that's another great example of just how public-private partnerships can show or can lead to people moving into an area, just interest in an area, and then you can see what happens with the virtuous cycle. So I guess all I had to say is all these cities and municipalities, they've done a great job really trying to be open for business. So
I think the other thing we've not talked about is one of the threads, if you will, that goes through both counties is the Tar River.
Right.
We got a lot of waterfront property, whether it's the reservoir or the Rocky Mountain Mills. We've not talked about the work that Capital Broadcasting has done there. I mean, that's in all of our promotion videos that comes up, right?
The Rocky Mountain Mills is like, it's the North
spot.
Hills of Rocky Mountain.
So it's great. And then to your point about Tarboro, I tell people it's the Greenville, South Carolina, and it's it's at beginning stages, and the work. We've had flooding issues and all that kind of thing that's come about, but the development is taking that in consideration. A lot of money, public and private, is coming together. And the other thing we need to talk about is Princeville. The story behind Princeville. The first incorporated municipality by slaves after the Civil War in the country. I mean, that story and the fact that Martin Luther King gave the first I Have a Dream speech in Rocky Mount. And I tell a story, we've come from Princeville to Natron. And that story is resonating, and it's part of what I was talking about earlier, culture. And the river has that to come along with it, the history behind the river. So all that comes into play of, we're becoming a destination for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, I think, talking on some of the projects that Benton mentioned, a lot of people give rural North Carolina and eastern North Carolina this, connotation that we're just going to accept the status quo. And I don't think that our communities accept that anymore. I think they're getting innovative. They're getting scrappy. Like, what do we want to be? They're establishing an identity and how they want to create that sense of place. And that's what's driving the residential development, because people want to live in places like that where the leaders have a vision for the future and they're, putting their money where their mouth is to do it. And I think that really has shifted since COVID. And so we're going to ride that tide as long as we can and see that growth continue to happen.
Yeah, I know. I love that. You talk about destination, right? I think of it being placemakers, right? Everybody in this room, we're part of something greater, and it's being a placemaker, and we're transforming, our communities in North Carolina. Also for families, right? I think that's also something that's unique about what we're talking about. It's for families. It's not just for, older folks or college age. I mean, young kids could come out and enjoy all the transformations that we're seeing.
And that's Benton's a pride quality of that. He's come back home. Yeah. A big Carolina guy, baseball player, and all that good stuff. Moorhead scholar. So he's come home, and there's stories about that, and a lot of that is just like Nash County, you have a county rec department. That doesn't sound big, but you got facilities, kids come and they play in the Little League, and
We had a meeting at the partnerships office this morning, and we're not quite to the level of the Triangle from a dating market perspective. But if you found that person and you're ready to start a family, or if you have a family, it's a great place to live, to work, and to play, but just to raise a family. It really is like the quality of life. I don't know, I'm from the area, so I'm obviously, biased in the right direction, but it's a great area to raise a family. So, and I think that next step is going to be like, how do we attract those young professionals to meet that person in the Twin Counties, as opposed to going off to the Charlottes and the Atlantas and the Triangles and then coming back home, right? So,
and then you can come to Raleigh to go see the Christmas Carol or the symphony.
Yes.
And by the way, Tarboro hosts the symphony.
New York
ballet. The culture is there too, locally, but or an hour away.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I grew up in Wilmington, so a little bit more coastal, but you could always tell when someone's from Eastern North Carolina because they're salt of the earth people, just good people. So I love all of that. Okay, so we've only got a few more questions. This has been really fun, and it's gone by quickly. But I'm going to have a few rapid-fire questions for you before we end on our signature question. So, Benton, I'll start with you. So our rapid-fire question for you, and this is, you could try to do it in one sentence. Don't feel like you have to do it in one sentence. Which emerging commercial real estate subsector, last-mile logistics, cold storage, lab space, open-ended question, will define Eastern North Carolina in the next 5 years?
Do I have to pick from one of those?
No, you could pick.
I would say either residential, and that's a broad swath. That's single family. That's duplex, triplex, quad rentals. That's multifamily. That's anything residential or mixed use. Residential, right, is going to have to define the next few years just because we need it. And then also smaller industrial. There's not too many Kingsborough megasites out there, right? We don't need that many. We need one or two, and then let's focus on those, and that's what we have. So we'll have a few projects that are big and sort of PPP type builds, but then we need a lot of these small flex industrial buildings that Nash County is working on, other private developers are working on as well. That's all the demand that we see, on our commercial side is, hey, 50,000 square feet and less. Like, do you have anything, anything from 2,500 to 40,000 square feet? What do you have? And there's nothing out there. So I'd say those two things.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to let you off the hook. So on this one, just a follow-up question. We were joking earlier, but Simmons and Harris manages the Rocky Mount office where Barnhill is headquartered out of. But rumor on the street is there is some available spaces, right? So if anybody's looking for an office space.
That's right. We've got some office space on the ground floor at the Barnhill building. We're privileged to be in partnership with them, and love all y'all's team over there. It's just a pleasure to work with you guys.
Good. So, Bob, rapid fire question for you. Which infrastructure project should everyone track next?
Power.
Power.
You got to have electricity. Power brings projects. Power brings people.
That's a quote.
And power property tax, income. You just figure up every $1 billion brings in $10 million. I mean, it's just the multiplier effects is huge because we have these people, and this is not one sentence answer. We got to have a place for them to go to school. We got to pay our school teachers. My goal is to be able to have a supplement better than Wake County and Edgecombe County. We want the best and brightest. So we got to have that, but power, got to have electricity, lots of it.
Susan, so rapid fire question for you. What single capability from shovel-ready sites to high-speed internet, that was just open-ended, does every rural county need to thrive long-term?
Well, for Nash, we've been working on the shovel-ready sites with all of our industrial park development, our shell buildings that we've got available, and we'll continue to do that. But I think that mine would be people. So we need people. We need workforce. We need support for our workforce. And I think that all of rural North Carolina needs to learn how to leverage that and support that, or you're not going to have the new jobs come in. And so how do we lift our people up? How do we get them good working wages? And how do we continue to develop that workforce? We've talked a lot about our community partners with the community college, North Carolina Wesleyan University, but also our public school systems and our nonprofit partners that are trying to get into these classrooms early to tell people about jobs in their communities so that they aren't going out to look, at 2 hours away to the next metro area. So I would say people and how we support developing our people to create that local talent pipeline.
Yeah, that's a great response. Okay, so this is our final question, and it's a big one, very important question. So last but not least, this podcast is called Constructing the Carolinas. So if there's any one project that you could see be built in North Carolina, and it could be anything at all, what would that one project be?
Well, I'd like to, I'll go first.
Please.
I would like to see what is on the rendering of Sunset Commons be built. And, to be honest with you, this is not a political statement or anything. If it's a casino, it's a casino. Let's do it the right way. If it's not a casino, let's make it some type of entertainment district that's family friendly. We've used the term families a lot. I think as long as you can have families in that district, I think it will be a very big success to our whole area, as a whole. So, but I don't, if you've seen that rendering, it's a fancy rendering, but I can tell you as someone being in development, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of capital. It's a big vision. So I'd love to see something like that built in Eastern North Carolina.
I just keep coming back to power. Power generation. We need power generation in our region. There was a coal burning power plant in Rocky Mount, the Cogentrix. It was there for a reason. Coal was shut down. We need power generation alongside of single, doubles, and triples and some home runs, and possibly taking advantage of that power that we should self-generate, if you will, to put infrastructure in, whether it's data center infrastructure, there's extremely high dollar value per acre or per whatever that brings the revenue to support the people, the school systems, the infrastructure, the law enforcement. So those coming up at the same time is what really is exciting for us. So.
My unfun answer would be sewer. To support the residential and industrial that we have. Just, we're a unique county where we're large, where we've got part of the county that touches up to Wake County and the other part that's I-95. And that's a lot of land to cover and a lot of infrastructure to provide. So in a perfect world, a good sewer system that covers it all for everyone. In a fun answer, I would totally support like what Benton's saying and more quality of life amenities. So we're recruiting these industries, we're recruiting these families. So let's keep them here and providing some of those quality businesses and attractions that they'd want to stay here for. And we've got a lot of momentum, not just with the Sunset 95 area, but even in Middlesex, we've got a new property owner that's got 90 acres right on the interstate that for a while we thought would never be available for development, and now it is. And so how do we bring those types of businesses to support the growth? So an unfun and a fun answer.
We might need to talk about those acres after this podcast.
I didn't get my fun answer. I see the fun answer.
Yeah, there you go.
Edgecombe County is somewhat of a clean slate. I was in Canita. Some people may call it Cointo. They were trying to figure out about a new festival. I told them maybe the Sock Festival, something like that. But you've got Pine Tops and help me out here.
Macclesfield.
Yeah, these villages, really? Yeah, the whole 9 yards. But I can envision villages. You got all this land, basically a clean slate. Yeah. If you know the guys that are doing the Disney project, we can put them.
We've got lots of land.
Bring them all.
But something like like we've talked about,
Mixed
like
use.
a Wendell Falls.
Yes.
Something that is more residential, single family in nature. Maybe you have some towns. Maybe you have some single families. Maybe you have some larger lots, smaller lots, towns. But then you've got some retail to support it. You have to assemble a lot of land. You need county and city support, but something like that would be cool.
And tighten it up so we still can have a sweet potato field.
Right.
We can still
We're still
have
supporting agriculture.
soybeans and peanuts that my kids and grandkids can go, well, what is that? Well, you get sweet potatoes from here, not the Walmart food line. So, yeah.
Those are great answers. Well, I appreciate everybody's time today. I appreciate you all coming to Raleigh and being on the podcast, but I really enjoyed the conversation, and you all are doing incredible things for our community, for the state, and just making a big difference in so many people's lives. So thank you all.
Yeah.
We got to add to it, I think all three of us would say this, the Barnhill family are an extremely valuable asset to our community and the support in a lot of different ways. You see them on the highway, those guys that are pouring asphalt in 103-degree heat coming up here. But, the family and the commitment to education and support of all aspects of the community is something that, again, we're talking about attributes, our assets of community. Having people like the Barnhill family that are giving back is so critical. So thank you for having us and doing these type of things.
I grew up and remember, kind of seeing the Barnhill trucks around, and it wasn't the scope and scale wasn't what it is today when I was coming up, but just the fact that they're still in Rocky Mount, still in Eastern North Carolina, and investing so heavily, back east is something special. So thank you guys too for what you all are doing, and thanks for having us on the podcast.
We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A huge thank you to Benton Moss, Susan Phelps, and Bob Pike for their leadership and insight into the exciting transformation happening across Eastern North Carolina. Whether it's building homes, attracting industry, or designing places where people can live, work, and play, it's clear this region isn't just growing, it's thriving. To learn more, check out Twin County Spotlight, follow Nash County Economic Development, or visit carolinasgateway.com. And thank you for tuning in to Constructing the Carolinas. Make sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app or subscribe on YouTube so you never miss an episode. You can also see how Barnhill is helping shape North Carolina's future at barnhillcontracting.com and on LinkedIn. This podcast is produced and edited by Walk West. I'm your host, Valerie Bono, reminding you that when we build with purpose, we build stronger communities. See you next time.